Do you remember the buyback principle?
Yeah, you're not buying to grow your sales. You're buying to pay to reduce the time you spend in the business.
Yeah.
You're buying back your time,
Yeah.
your freedom.
Yeah. And so I think what I would follow, like I remember specifically with us, we had a lot of contract designers that, because we don't do a ton of design work, but sometimes there's someone needs a logo or someone needs something designed. And so we would hire just a contractor that we had probably 3 or 4 that we used from time to time. Say, hey, can you do this project? They would do it. It would go great. And then eventually we started getting a lot of, it was a part of all of our onboardings for clients that we were having design work. So I said, you know what, let's hire a full-time designer, when we definitely could have gotten by with contractors, and was one of the most expensive roles for us whenever we did hire for it. And it just added so much to my plate in terms of, I felt like we needed to start getting more design work than we had already because of the expense. And then it was more, I had to manage someone full time. It just completely changed a lot of our strategy and all this kind of stuff. And if I would have just kept maybe someone or my contractors in place and hired someone that would actually take away from the time that I was spending in the business, it would have been way more beneficial for us. So I think that's a really good thing. And, with that, I think for today's topic, I want to talk about executive assistants. I've really been on a journey of finding an executive assistant. I've worked with, this is number 3 right now that I'm on. And I think I've found a pretty good fit with Gabby. But yeah, it's been transformative for me. I think we're going to talk about in future episodes a book called 17 Reasons Why Your Company is an Investment Grade. And you were saying your company doesn't have value if you're not delegating. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, if you have a bunch of assets, trucks and equipment and maybe some property, it has that value.
Yeah.
But as a business, your company really, it's a little harsh. I'm going to just say it that way, but it doesn't have value.
Yeah.
If it depends on you. We've been over that many times, but if you have to be there, what you have is a job, and investors typically don't want to buy a job, and they especially don't want to buy your job, right? Sometimes, you may have the value of a phone list, a customer list, things like that. But even that, if your customer list really is based on your personal relationships and you want to sell your business and you're walking out the door, what's going to keep those customers around? So,
yeah,
it's just critical.
In the book, he talks about how if you want to be rich, be lazy, meaning like don't do anything and delegate everything. But if you want to be wealthy, be incompetent. And what he talks about with that is, if you're I think his example is a restaurant. If you own a restaurant and you have no idea how to cook, there's just you couldn't make eggs if someone asked you to, and the cook quits. And so you're incompetent in that role. Your number one priority is hiring a cook and saying,
you're going to
make it work. But if you had some experience as a cook and you felt like you might be able to do it, you might just jump in the kitchen and you might stay there for 8 weeks and everything else is struggling and the kitchen sucks too, because you're not a great cook. And so everything, just the standards lower across the board. And so when you're incompetent, you do a better job of delegating than when you are. But I think with that, that's the challenge, is that people hire new roles because, like, I hired a designer because I'm incompetent as a designer, but that doesn't buy back my time. And so the challenge with hiring and delegating is that it's really difficult to be incompetent because you're starting the business. And so you're doing every little thing. And if you're hiring someone to take over part of your time, then that means that you're not incompetent at that thing. And so that's the challenge, is you feel like you can do it better than the hire. And that's why you don't delegate it. I hear it all the time. Well, it's not as good as what I would do, so I just do it myself. Don't you hear that?
Oh yeah. And there's the 70% rule out there, sometimes 80%, but if somebody can do it 70% as well as you, hand it off. Right. Nobody's ever going to do it as well as you, but you're never going to be beyond your personal capacity if you don't hand it off. Right.
Well, and that's where,
it's common as dirt.
And that's where you get into like retention matters so much, because you can take that person from 70% to 90%. But if you don't retain your employees, then you're always going to be at a 70%. So I want to go back to executive assistants though. I've been telling people my journey, hiring one. And I think that, for the most part for myself, I wasn't ready for an executive assistant in terms of mindset, of being ready to delegate, of being ready to truly train and create SOPs and have the right mindset. I was assuming they'd come on and just take stuff off my plate. And that's really not how it works. You have to have some skin in the game. You've got to be invested and really kind of on a mission to replace yourself in many respects. And I was with a friend, and I was telling him, yeah, I got to send this message so that my assistant can schedule this for me. He's like, couldn't you just put it in your Google Calendar? I was like, I can, but then that creates the habit of me doing it every time. And if I can create the habit of, oh, I've got this on my plate, let me give it away. Even with the littlest things of send this email, schedule this on the calendar, remind so-and-so to do this, it really helps. And so going into it for myself, hiring executive assistant, my main priority was to be better about communication, to be better about delegating to the rest of my team, and even to my assistant. And then lastly, to be better at documentation. And then across the board, being accountable with all those things. But you mentioned, if you don't have, if you're not delegating, then your company doesn't have any value. If you don't have systems and you don't have documentation, then you can't delegate well. And so,
Yeah, can't delegate well.
like I was talking to somebody the other day, and they want to grow their business so that it runs without them and be profitable. And they don't use any software at all. And it's possible to do it without software, but in today's day and age, it's almost impossible. And they need that software in place so that they can document things so that they can step out of the business, because everything's in their head. And if it's in their head, they can't delegate it effectively. But if it's documented
Right.
somewhere where everybody can see it, then they're going to be able to actually delegate it.